All right, I'd like to call Louisiana Wildlife and Fishery Commission meeting of June 1st, call to order, and we start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Andy, you want to lead us in that, please? United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Susan, roll call, please.
Andrew Blanchard.
Here.
Brendan DeQueer is absent. Andy Brisper. Joe McPherson. Gene Reynolds is absent. Kevin Segura is absent. Allison Terry. Mr. Chairman, there are 4 commissioners in attendance, and we have a quorum. Secretary Shadowin is also present.
Right. We need adoption on the May 4th, 2023 commission meeting.
No, you gotta go to number 4.
Oh, I'm sorry. Approval of the June 1st, 23 agenda. Yeah, motion, second by Al. All in favor, state aye. Aye. Motion passes. Next, the adoption of the May 4th, 2023 commission meeting minutes. So got a motion by Joe, second by Andy. All in favor, state aye. Motion passes. Next, commission special announcements, personal privileges. There's Robert Shanahan. Can't pronounce that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the commission and folks here. 2 things. One, you're going to see some people being swapped out today. The legislature is within 7 days of adjourning. And some of our folks are already at the Capitol. Some will be leaving early. I will be leaving early. So as you see people being swapped in and out, we're just going to work somewhere else, okay? Number 2, today is going to be the last commission meeting that Colonel Chad Hebert will attend unless he wants to come back and do this just for fun. Chad is finishing up 30 years with the enforcement section of the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. And I wanted to take the time and opportunity to thank him for the service that he's rendered over the years. We wish him Godspeed in his retirement and know that we will miss you. But we are very thankful for the job and the professionalism that you have exhibited throughout your career. So thank you, Colonel Hebert. Okay? You bet.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
All righty.
Yeah, y'all can give him a hand because,
Yep, all righty.
yeah. I knew I would embarrass him, and that's one of the reasons. Thank y'all.
Okay, Joe.
Colonel Hebert, I think we bragged on you last month thinking that you probably wouldn't show up this month. So that's a real tribute that you'd come and finish out your full term. But today I'll just wish you the best and hope that you have a long and very deserved retirement, and a lot of it I know will be in the outer doors. So thank you very much.
All right. Al.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to take this opportunity to give praises to Colonel Hebert. I've gotten to know Chad over the years, beginning with the Oyster Task Force, and he brought a lot of commonsensical things to that. His predecessors on there were equally as good, but Chad carried that on. And I really appreciate that. And I got to know, I didn't realize how much of the economical part of what enforcement that he was affiliated with over at in enforcement. And I think through a lot of that leadership, they, put things on firm ground and all. And I want to tell everyone about that because Chad, you've been great. And I'm happy to see that you're going to join the ranks of retirement because it's fun.
Well, for me, he was a legend is all I know. I saw his name a lot. I heard his name a lot and Lake Providence but I never met him until I came to the commission, and I've enjoyed getting to know you and especially our time at that committee meeting the other day. I think that's the most we've ever talked. We probably should have been listening more, but I enjoyed visiting with you that day and getting to know the legend, the myth.
All right. And Chad, thanks for your service from the rest of the guys. I'm sure that they would have same thing, appreciate everything you've done. You know, I know in the 2-year tenure that I've been up here, you've done an excellent job with you and your staff. And, you know, I wish you the best, you know, in your retirement. Just don't fish too much, you know, right there. So, all right. If anybody else has anything, we'll move on to our next agenda item. Major Skinner, you want to give us a report?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. For the month of May, we had 7 boating incidents, 2 injuries, and 1 fatality, 674 written citations, 434 written warnings, and 24 public assists. And I have a couple of cases that we're highlighting for last month. Agents cited 3 subjects in 2 separate cases in Plaquemine Parish for closed season shrimping. Agents were on patrol in Bay Palm d'Or when they observed 1 subject on a skimmer vessel actively harvesting shrimp during the closed season. When agents boarded the vessel, they determined he had just put his nets in the water prior to agents boarding the vessel. All marine life was immediately returned to the water and the captain was cited. Later that same evening, agents observed 2 subjects in Schofield Bay actively harvesting shrimp during the closed season. Agents boarded the vessel and found them in possession of 604 pounds of shrimp. Further investigation revealed that the captain of the vessel had been cited on 3 prior occasions for shrimping during the closed season. The shrimp were seized and sold, and the captain's nets were seized as well. A Homer man was cited in Claiborne Parish for hunting turkeys over bait. Agents received a complaint about someone hunting turkeys over a baited area near Homer and began investigating. The agents went to the scene and observed the subject actively hunting turkeys near a corn feeder with deposited corn on the ground. That subject was cited and released as well. Enforcement agents cited an Alabama man in Calcasieu Parish for taking non-game birds, taking ibis no season, and taking heron no season. Agents received a tip about a person shooting seagulls at a residence in Lake Charles. Agents responded to the scene and found several dead birds in an adjoining field and in a trash can next to the house. Agents also found numerous empty shotgun shells outside the house. Agents questioned the subject and he admitted to shooting them with a 12-gauge shotgun. Agents found 14 seagulls, 1 ibis, and 1 heron. In addition to the criminal fines and possible incarceration, the subject faces civil restitution totaling $278 for the replacement value of those illegally killed birds. Mr. Chairman, this concludes the report. Sir.
Any questions for Major Skinner? All right, Major, good job for y'all. We'll move on to the next item. Cole Garrett, you want to give us a report on the legislative?
Y'all are way over there. I know this is y'all's favorite report because it's the last one I give of the year to you guys. So y'all don't have to hear me come drone on about all the instruments that's going through. Secretary Shadowin mentioned, we are 7 days away from sine die. So everything is kind of getting wrapped up. I don't know if it's in a nice neat bow, but it's going to come to an end. That's going to occur on June 8th. I'll just dive right into the bills that we've been tracking throughout the session. You're familiar with most of these, so I'm going to go through them pretty quickly. As usual, if there's anything that I can, any questions that I can answer as I go, please feel free to stop me. House Bill 221 was a restriction on rulemaking. It was one that we had some concern over. It said that anytime this body promulgates a rule, it would have to select 2 other rules that it would do away with. We believe that to be fairly arbitrary. All the rules we believe are important. The bill it continues to move through the process. It's pending the approval of the Senate. But it was amended throughout the process. Now agencies just need to identify rules that may be ripe for repeal or amendment. So it kind of creates the agency's duty to review their rules every time they promulgate one, but it doesn't mandate that rules actually be repealed. So still seems somewhat arbitrary, but certainly much more palatable in this stance than it was when it was originally filed. House Bill 503, this was a department bill. You're very familiar with this topic. This is the issuance of bulk whole identification numbers with the LAZ designation. We put the legislature on notice that this body has taken action to create its own shallow water exemption through July of 2024. And then we've asked them to remove the mandate that we issue whole ID numbers to vessels that are otherwise not eligible for U.S. Coast Guard, and push all the manufacturers into complying with federal manufacturing standards. It got some pushback, both on the House side and in Senate committee, but it has made it all the way to the Senate floor. It came up for a vote the other day, but was returned to the calendar because they were on Bagneris rules and they weren't taking up any bills that had any opposition whatsoever. So it has not received a vote on the Senate floor yet, but that's where it is in the process. Fortunately, Senate Bill 119, which would have repealed the youth hunting license and cost this agency a lot of federal matching dollars that flow down from that, was never heard in committee. The author had it on an agenda, did not appear for that committee hearing, and has not put it back on. And at this point, it is functionally dead. So that's good news for this agency. The final one on this page deals with electronic meetings for boards and commissions. This would allow for Wildlife and Fisheries Commission or any other boards, commissions to hold occasional meetings by virtual means. There's kind of a lot of nuances with it, but essentially a third of the meetings could be held via electronic means. And then kind of this flows from the experience that everyone had during COVID and kind of getting used to holding meetings virtually, and kind of seeing some of the benefits that flow from that and people being able to participate like that. So we may be able to go down that road if this body so chooses sometime in the future. Getting into specific wildlife bills, House Bill 448 was to pay the judgment for the Crooks versus the state. That was referred to House Appropriations and was never taken up. So it still remains there. Again, we're far enough along in the process to where that is functionally dead as well. House Bill 485 would exempt Livingston Parish from the Scenic Rivers Act. This was a bill that the department and the commission took opposition to. We did not think it was a good idea to arbitrarily remove a parish from a statewide program. The natural resources on the House committee on the House side agreed, and they had some other issues with it, and the bill was deferred in that committee and did not make it anywhere past that. I will go ahead and mention turns out Livingston Parish's concern with the Scenic Rivers Act and the application of it to their parish was that they couldn't remove debris from a recent storm, a named storm. And we got with the parish, we notified them that no, in fact, your application and the permit that you've got does allow you to remove these things. And so I think that all's well that ends well. I think they're going to be able to remove the debris that they seek to remove without having to amend the law. So I think that was just a conversation that needed to be had. Another bill that did not move forward that we are thankful for is the monetary reward for feral hogtails. This is another bill the commission took opposition to. There was a potential that we would have to pay out $2 million a year to people who bring hogtails to us. That's obviously a large fiscal impact on this agency. And frankly, the times that this has been tried elsewhere did not seem to have much effect on feral hog population. So I believe this was converted to a resolution looking for alternative effective ways to manage and perhaps eradicate feral hogs. House concurrent resolution number 3, this is self-clearing permits on particular refuges, specifically Rockefeller and Marsh Island. Last year, your rulemaking made it mandatory to have self-clearing permits on these particular refuges. This is not something that we've always mandated on refuges. This was something relatively new, and some of the local lawmakers and their constituents kind of chafed under the new rule. And so this actually, most resolutions don't have the effect of law. This does in fact have the effect of changing regulations promulgated by this commission. So those will be published in the register and will take effect once that occurs. House Concurrent Resolution 85. This is a new one. I've not presented this to you all yet because it's been filed since the last time you met. This is requesting a feasibility study for a black bear hunting season, and urges the commission and the department to look into the feasibility of that. As you are all probably aware, the Louisiana black bear was delisted from the Federal Endangered Species Act. We've been undergoing post delisting monitoring phase, and there is also a current litigation challenging the delisting of that against the federal government. That lawsuit has not been finally wrapped up. It's still waiting for a decision in the Middle District of the Federal Middle District in Louisiana. But that's kind of where everything is in the process. And that bill is actually being heard this morning, probably as we speak, in Senate Natural Resources. Another resolution that affects wildlife is HCR 132. This is brought by Chad Brown. This is to increase wild alligator harvest. The bill, the resolution as filed was much stronger than what came out of committee. The original one was a direct to the department and the commission to increase tag allotment, to create a bonus tag, to take certain actions to increase recreational harvest. It was amended in committee to convert it to an urgent request to work for the department to work with the Alligator Advisory Council and essentially study and make recommendations regarding the alligator markets, populations, and how there could be a potential increase in hunting to get some of the wild alligators off of the landscape. So that's the posture that's in. The author seemed to be amenable to the changes. So that's how it came out. So it's pending the House floor. I suspect they will suspend the rules on the Senate side. I don't think it's going to get a hearing in committee. It'll just go to a hearing on the whole.
Are there any recreational interest on the Alligator Advisory Council?
There are landowners, there are commercial interests, and there are there's three farmers, there's 3 landowners, and 3 hunters, right? I'm sorry, yeah. So 3 landowners, 3 farm owners, and 3 hunters. We have
But basically all commercial interests make up the Alligator Advisory Council.
We have historically managed this as a commercial industry. And so that representation reflects the historic management of it.
So this resolution may be very well advised in that we need to start looking at alligators in Louisiana with the current population and start showing more deference to the recreational value of alligators at this point.
Yeah, and part of the conversation amongst the committee was comparison with Florida, how they do it. They have a year-round season with a recreational component to it, in addition to the farms and the commercial aspects that they have. So that comparison certainly came out. And I'll defer to Assistant Secretary Myers if he wants to chime in.
Thank you.
Another resolution, this is not a concurrent resolution, just urges that we evaluate and make recommendations regarding the use of dogs for deer hunting on Maurepas Swamp WMA, because it just was on the House side. It has already made its way quickly through the process and has been enrolled. So we will be looking at that in the upcoming year as well. There was a whole slew of carbon capture and sequestration bills that were filed, and one remains. I will run through these very quickly. The removal of eminent domain authority by Robbie Carter was involuntarily deferred in House Natural Resources. The prohibition of these projects in St. Helena Parish, also by Robbie Carter, was involuntarily deferred in Natural Resources. The prohibition of wells in Lake Maurepas actually made it out of House Natural Resources, but was defeated on the floor by a pretty wide margin. Representative Wheat's bill that would place a moratorium on projects on Lake Maurepas and also on Maurepas Swamp WMA made it out of committee, but was also defeated on the House floor. Representative Wheat's bill requiring an environmental impact study for any carbon storage or sequestration projects reached a tie vote in House Natural Resources, and so it was not moved out of there. It just kind of remained in committee purgatory. House Bill 312 would limit the liability and damage, or addressed a limitation that exists in current law regarding CCS operators. That was made it out of committee, but then was recommitted to House Civil Law. And because of timing issues, it was never moved beyond that. House Bill 453, this is injection on, requires any injection of carbon storage into the Gulf of Mexico and nowhere else. It was involuntary deferred in House Natural Resources. And then that was by Sherman Mack, and Sherman Mack's other bill was requiring parish approval of such projects, and that was also involuntarily deferred in House Natural Resources. So the lone bill that remains is the Speaker's bill, HB 571. It's a very expansive bill. It deals with notice of these projects. It deals with notice of the geophysical or geological surveys that are done, including seismic, which of course is under your purview. And keep in mind that y'all have already proactively taken action to increase these notice requirements, and the bill essentially memorializes those. So that bill continues to move through. I'd say the primary thing that this bill does is any revenues that were received off of state water bottoms or state lands, 30% of that would be directed to the parish in which that project occurs. That does not apply to the properties that Wildlife and Fisheries Commission or Department own in its private capacity. I'll note that because that is important. Jumping into some fisheries bills, there was a tax exemption for commercial fishermen and processors. That bill has been enrolled. There's another tax credit for oyster shell recycling. This is from our friends at CRCL, a $1 tax credit per 50 pound of oyster shells that are recycled. We do a bunch of culch. We partner with them and do some culch plants with the shells that they get from participating restaurants, and it's been a successful program. House Bill 438, this is the public oyster sea ground licenses. This was essentially a cleanup bill brought to us by the industry. There was some confusion as to whether a vessel owner or the captain was supposed to have a particular license. And so we just clarified that. That bill has been enrolled. It passed that House yesterday with a concurrence. House Bill 528 is a shrimp and crawfish labeling penalty. There was some opposition from the Restaurant Association for this bill. This bill would have authorized LWF enforcement to go into restaurants and enforce this, which has historically been a Department of Health issue. It was voluntarily deferred in House Natural Resources. The Menhaden exclusion zone was never heard, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. House Bill 627 is a fee increase for imported seafood safety fund. Again, this is a Department of Health certificate where this fee is attached. Right now, it's a $100 fee. The author wanted to bump it up to $125. And kind of the kicker here is they take the money from LDH, direct it to LSU Ag Center and have them conduct the testing. Reading between the lines in the testimony, I don't think this is something that LSU Ag Center wanted to have thrust upon them. I don't think they have the mechanisms to receive the funding. And so for those reasons, it was deferred last week. I believe that it's going to be heard in committee today, and we'll see if they work through some of those issues. So that's definitely impacts seafood processors and wholesalers, but not necessarily this department.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
one question. Can you, I know the new bill, 134, can you talk about that one? It was just introduced, I think, yesterday.
Are you talking about House Concurrent Resolution 134?
Right.
I would gladly do that on this page.
It's not on,
I'm sorry, on the following page. I can jump to it real quick if you
well,
want.
I didn't know it was on here. I didn't see it.
Yes, sir. I actually, I updated the presentation this morning from some bills that were filed, so you don't
I'm sorry.
have the whole thing in front of you. My apologies. Some continued fisheries bills, HCR 128, request that LDWF study the impacts of wakeboard boats on fisheries and shoreline properties on False River. That was one that was recently filed, and a new one to my presentation here. It did make it out of committee yesterday, but I did discuss with the author that LDWF is probably not the proper, that we don't have the engineering expertise to be looking at impacts to properties and bulkheads and that kind of stuff. So I believe at least DOTD may be added to this as well. Senate Bill 90 would require payment of fair market value for use of surface water. That bill met opposition in Senate Natural Resources and was voluntarily deferred. The author of Senate Bill 99, Eddie Lambert, this would make a 3-day possession limit for red snapper if you have a remote camp that you can only reach by boat. We were reached out to by the feds, by NOAA and National Marine Fisheries, and they said, look, y'all have the ability to set seasons, but we don't have the ability, we didn't grant y'all the ability to set possession limits. This would be interfering with federal law, and so the author voluntarily deferred that bill as well. Senate Bill 133, providing for the Menhaden fishery, was nothing but a placeholder bill, and when the House Menhaden bill didn't move, this one, nothing became of it either. Senate Bill 161 is the Louisiana Small Wild Catfish Processors Act. This was the bill that basically allows a processor to conduct their business kind of in their home, much like a home baker or something would do. Relaxes some of the portions of the sanitary code. It's limited to people who sell 400 pounds, but it still has all the requirements for licensing. And Commissioner Sunseri, I know you had expressed some concern about this in the past, that this would be a way for people to get around some of the wholesale retail dealer issues. The author did amend it to address that concern. So I think it's in a better posture now. And then finally, Senate Concurrent Resolution 46 by Senator Allan urges the Wildlife and Fisheries Commission to promulgate rules and regulations to prohibit the take of red drum over 27 inches. So essentially to remove that bull red from the slot, and then also to take a look at what the restitution values are and come up with a price per pound to apply restitution to us. That's an urgent request. And now, Mr. Chairman, I'll get to a whole slew of seafood resolutions that were filed kind of late in the session. HCR 29 by Representative Kerner requests that the U.S. reconsider its agreement with Ecuador for aquaculture. Obviously, there's a lot of shrimp that come in and are raised in ponds in Ecuador. And there is an agreement between the U.S. and Ecuador right now that kind of creates that relationship. So this is a request that the U.S. reconsider that. HCR 88 deals with USDA testing of imported seafood. It memorializes Congress to compel USDA to perform their duties to test and inspect imported seafood. Right now, a very small percentage is being tested. And so this would compel them to do more. ACR 105 is very similar. It seeks to expand the testing, but it has a state component asking LDH as well as USDA to expand testing of imported shrimp. House Concurrent Resolution 109 memorializes Congress to impose a quota or tariff on imported shrimp and to also enact a buy plan for domestic shrimp that we have here. House Concurrent Resolution 113 would actually ban the import of shrimp and crawfish, memorializes Congress to do so on anything that is imported from outside the U.S. And that was Speaker Shake Snyder's resolution there. And then finally, the one you asked about, Mr. Chairman, House Concurrent Resolution 134 creates an imported seafood safety task force to study and make recommendations regarding funding and enforcement of imported seafood. We would, the way the bill is written, Wildlife and Fisheries would have a seat at that, as well as a commercial fisherman would have a seat on that task force as well. It is a House concurrent resolution. It's been set on the House orders. They're going to have to suspend rules both on the House and Senate side to get it through in time. I don't expect it to get any committee hearings. Still possible it can make it out, but it's definitely been filed very late in the game. Finally, we've got some enforcement bills. House Bill 4 was the criminal trespass on running waters, basically prohibiting enforcement of criminal trespass if people were upon running waters of the state. This bill was involuntarily deferred after it was taken up in House Criminal Justice. So that one is not moving through the process. House Bill 59 by Representative Dubazon allows for operation of personal watercraft at night so long as they're equipped with lights that are compliant with U.S. Coast Guard standards. We did testify in committee on this bill. I think there's kind of some common sense concerns. These are very maneuverable watercraft. They're small, they're fast. Anytime you're dealing with that, operation at night can be inherently dangerous. But with that said, we don't have any concrete data to suggest that it is actually injuring or there's higher mortality with this. There's about 15 other states that allow for nighttime operation. So without that, concrete data to support, opposition, we really didn't come out against it too much. And it has in fact passed the Senate floor. And so it's heading for enrollment now. So expect for properly lit personal watercrafts to be able to be utilized 24 hours a day. House Bill 207, this prohibits minors, so anyone under 18, from swimming in a river that has a hydroelectric dam on it without a personal flotation device or a life jacket. This bill was amended in committee. It removed, we're essentially talking about the Sabine River. This is Toledo Bend and the Sabine River. It was amended in committee to remove Calcasieu and Cameron Parish because the water has kind of slowed down by the time it's got down there. I believe the author's intent is for it to affect Vernon and Beauregard just downstream of the dam. The dam can release large amounts of water with very little warning or no warning at all. And so it creates some potentially dangerous situations there. I don't know, the way it's written to me, it seems to suggest that it might also apply to Toledo Bend, and I don't think that's the author's intent. So there may be some other amendments coming, but that's the bill, and it's continuing to move through the process. House Bill 297 creates a 1-year prescriptive period for litter violations. It started off as a 2-year period. This was brought from one of our enforcement agents because we use cameras to catch litter violators, and it takes a while to work these cases. And in certain instances, we were kind of running up against this prescriptive period to actually get a citation out there and start an investigation. So that bill has been enrolled. So now we have a full year from the time of the litter to actually run the investigation and start a prosecution. House Bill 299 would have prohibited us from, or any state law enforcement agency from enforcing federal firearms laws. This bill was involuntarily deferred. We did have some concerns being that we are duly commissioned as federal agents as well as receive federal excise taxes from guns and ammo. So I know the author's intent was to keep federal overreach from occurring, but there would have been some potential concerns from our standpoint. So that bill is dead in the water. Senate Concurrent Resolution 8 creates a vehicular pursuit task force. We do not have a seat at the table on that. But I will tell you, as I've told you in the past, we have recently looked at our own policies on high-speed vehicular pursuits, and we think that we are on the cutting edge of these policies. So not too much concern there. And then finally, House Bill 635, you're wondering why I have an excise tax on vapor and e-cigarettes here. But the reason is because that excise tax was raised from 5 cents to 50 cents, and the revenue was directed to law enforcement entities. The first 22 million of which is earmarked for Louisiana State Police. But the next 6 million is to be split equally among LWF, State Fire Marshal, and now the Public Defender Board. So assuming that it raises above $22 million, we can use this money to fund our law enforcement efforts and stay competitive with some of these other LEO organizations. So with that, I will conclude my presentation. I appreciate y'all listening to me for the last several months, and I promise I won't do this to y'all again until next spring.
Any questions?
Cole, I do. The black bear, I get asked about that more than anything. And is it a federal lawsuit that's stopping us from passing rules on that or something?
There is litigation that was filed against the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service challenging the delisting of the Louisiana black bear. And that litigation is ongoing. I say that it is pending a judgment, and it has been pending a judgment for about 18 months. There has been no other hearings or pleadings or filings or anything. It's just sitting there waiting for a judgment to be rendered. I don't believe that's prohibiting anybody from having discussions about it, but I think prudently it would be good to know how that lawsuit is going to be finalized before action is taken. And at least that's kind of been the stance thus far. But at a certain point, as Representative Travis Johnson kind of pointed out, you can only wait so long. Eventually, this commission may have to, take action to manage the species that is under its purview, and the legislature obviously has an interest in it as well. So that's the procedural history on it. That's where we stand. I expect a decision any day, but I have for 18 months. Yes, sir.
Al?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Cole, I know you're not going to report any more to us publicly, but can y'all provide what's finalized and what has passed this legislature?
Absolutely. Yes. I'll get you a final report once everything is signed and the horses are in the barn and all that. And hopefully Wendy is listening, but Wendy has been doing a great job of sending y'all updates and keeping y'all informed. I expect she'll continue to do that. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.
Right. Any other questions? Thanks, Cole.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Next, we're going to receive a resolution to add property through acquisition to Sandy Hollow Management Area, Alvin Landry.
Hard to file a Cole Garrett, but I'm gonna give it a shot. Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Secretary Shadowin. Good morning. My name's Alvin Landry. I'm an attorney for the department. Today, I'm offering a proposed resolution to add property to Sandy Hollow Wildlife Management Area, which is north of Hammond. We got this tract, the Mitchell tract, at the very end of March 2023 from Alan Mitchell and the others. It's 40 acres and it's already completely forested. It touches, you can see, it touches, well, that's where it's located. You can see on the map is due north of Hammond. And here's a better map of it where it shows that the 40 acres actually touches Sandy Hollow. This resolution will dedicate this 40-acre area for the protection of wildlife, for the conservation and management of wetlands habitats, and provides for public recreation. I ask that you consider and approve this proposed resolution.
We got a motion by Joe, second by Andy. All in favor of the resolution, state aye. Any opposition? No opposition. The motion is going to pass. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Alvin. Next on the agenda is receive modifications on the chronic waste disease control. Dr. Rusty Berry.
Good morning. I'm Rusty Berry. I'm Assistant State Wildlife Veterinarian for the department. I'm out of the Pineville office. First of all, I'd like to thank you for your support and interest while dealing with CWD. It's a very frustrating disease, to say the least, to manage and to deal with in our state. Just a quick reminder, Title 76, the definition of our control area is stated as a LWF designated area consisting of the CWD infectious zone and buffer zone where mitigation measures and regulations are applied to curb further spread of the disease. The control area shall be listed on the LWF website. Along that same line, our CWD response plan also states create and monitor a control area consisting of infected zone and buffer zone, along with creating a surveillance zone. The control area has increased to include a portion of northeast Concordia Parish, which is north and east of US 425. 425 intersects 84 and they continue on to Natchez, Mississippi. For now, our detection of the disease has basically moved south, which is the green area on the map. I'm sorry, the green area in the map is the increase in the control area. Our detection of disease has moved south. 10 of the 11 CWD positive samples from the 22 to 23 hunting season were located approximately 5 miles south of the original index case back in 21-22. One of those 22-23 positive samples was located less than a mile northeast of the index case. So we're talking about 3 separate properties right now. Since the original infected zone was a 5-mile radius circle around that index case location, it is now approximately increased 5 miles southward due to the 10 positive southern sample locations. That's indicated by the green dot on the map. This in turn increases our buffer zone south, which together with the infected zone increases a control area as indicated on the map. The two circles that you see are 25-mile radius circles, and they're not to be confused with the buffer zone. They're not the buffer zone. The buffer zone is the outer edge of the control area. These are just included for distance reference from each of the sites that indicates known observed deer movement or range, if you want to say, near that area for a healthy deer. So we know by collared studies that deer in that area of Louisiana can move upwards to 25 miles. That is for a healthy deer. For a deer with CWD, how far a CWD infected deer can move is unknown. We anticipate that distance to be a lot greater. And some researchers are suggesting 50 to 55 miles. But we're sticking with the known deer movement in that area, which is 25 miles. So as you can see it, both circles do enter the area of Concordia Parish. Our surveillance zone consists of 55 parishes where CWD sample number goals have been created for the 23 to 24 hunting season. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Joe?
Dr. Berry, one of the things that we've recognized, I think that early on, the biologist and y'all staff had anticipated that these early sightings are right on the Mississippi River, these early findings. And it's been anticipated that the movement of CWD detection would likely be up and down the river. And so I think that where we see it, the control area being more north of the 25 and now south of the 25 is probably a good precaution. And I think that when we're discussing this with the public, that's an element that needs to be included as part of the reason why we have these areas that are expanded a little bit more outside of it, as well as the obvious that that's where the physical barriers are to where it's easy for the public to understand the limits of the area, of the control area.
That's correct. And we chose the biggest highway to make it easier for us also to establish some cooler location sites to where the hunters will be able to utilize that easy to place heads in there for our testing. We recommend testing of any deer, especially out of the control area for CWD before consumption.
This basically brings us down to Vidalia.
Correct. Yes. It's where 425 comes down and then it intersects 84, and 425 and 84 continue on a southern and also eastward all the way to basically Natchez, right there at the river in Vidalia.
Is that predominantly farmland in this new area?
There's quite a bit of deer killed north of that line and east of that line. So there's a lot of hunting along that river. Mhm.
Thank you.
Al?
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the control area southward as presented.
Is there a motion on the floor? Anyone wants to second it?
Yeah, I'll second to adopt the resolution.
We get a second by Joe. All in favor of the resolution, state aye. Aye. With no opposition, the motion is gonna pass. Cool, I think that's what you wanted anyway, right?
So for clarification, the notice of intent that y'all originally passed to establish the control zone said it was going to be defined as a map on the department's website
Correct.
for the public notice and for the commission to continue to, direct the department where that control zone should be. Yes, I think the adoption of this publicly is appropriate.
Thanks. Thank you, Dr. Barrett. Next, we have a public comment, and we do have one public. Ronald Coco wants to speak on Black Bear.
Ronald Coco from Walls Parish. On the 18th of May, a meeting was called by the police jury from complaints from the people in the Springbriar area. The population of bears exploded in that area, and there's many homes that's there, and the bears are starting to break into the homes, into the camps, and any facility they can break into now, they're getting in there, and the people are discouraged with them. The meeting was called Living with Bears, but it ended up with the beekeepers taking it over. Now, they were very, very verbal. They had a lawyer involved in it. And I'm just giving you a little update on it because like I told Mr. Rob, I can't go into full details because there's another case involved in there. But anyway, the beekeepers want to know why they can't be reimbursed or get some kind of money back for destroying their beehives when they're losing 10,000, 15,000, some even more than that in 1 yard. And there's nowhere to be for them to be compensated. They're doing the fences. Most of them do fences, electric fences around their areas and all that. They're complying by the laws of the wildlife. But what if the people are just getting fed up with the bears in that area? There's starting to be too many of them. And that's when it came up, I see with the bill for the hunting season. And they came up with a number that came like a magical number. When they reach a certain number of bears, they would open the season. And it's like some of the people say, what is this magical number going to be? Nobody can give you an answer. So that's what I'm saying. These people are very upset because there's a lot of damage being done, not just in Springby, but in Grassy Lake also. The camps on Grassy Lake are being hit very hard also. And bears are moving more and more, especially this time of the year, the young males. In fact, Monday, there's 2 teenagers that hit a bear right on Highway 1, right out of Mansura. And the people are complaining. They call the wildlife, and they're not getting no service from the wildlife. Help from the wildlife to try to remove those bears and do something with them. But I know you can't, but I mean, because the bear are protected, so. But I'm watching, they will be coming with a lawsuit from the beekeepers.
And that's from the bee people?
Yeah.
Beekeepers?
Yeah. That's what I said. Actually, the meeting was called to talk to the people. The people were sort of disgusted about it. They had called a meeting for that, but then the bee people came in and they took over the meeting just about. The wildlife was representative. They had, I think, 14 standing in the back and with the one doing the presentation. In fact, Dr. Barry's son, I think, was one of them, and Hank is the other one doing the presentation for that. And they tried to explain to people the rules and regulations, what they got to go by. I mean, y'all don't make the laws, they got to enforce it, don't they? But the people would like to see something done in those areas because of the population of bear getting so big.
All right, Joe, you got
Go
a
ahead.
question?
Ronald, one of the things that I would hope they would understand that when there's a bear season, and I think there will be one at some point, but we've got to have all the data. We've got to know that we're not going to wind up like Florida and make a misstep and be precluded from having a bear season because we didn't do it correctly. But in an area like Saline, Larto, Springby, and all, I've had conversations with Mr. Meyer, and he's explained to me in these low-lying areas, there's probably not gonna be a bear season, it's if there is a bear season, it'll start, in the Tensas and in the basin and other places, so they need to understand that if and when there's a bear season, it ain't gonna be a statewide bear season, and probably isn't gonna be in these areas that they're talking about. Most of those bears, and I have them on my property and all, most of them are young males, passing through. We
Passing
see
through,
them,
yeah.
and then they're gone for a while, and then another one come back and hang around, destroy the deer feeders and all. And I can certainly understand if I was in the bee business and I went to all the effort of putting out those big colonies out there and a bear came and ripped them apart, but, I don't know how successful they would be with a lawsuit if they were. Well, the soybean farmers would have a good lawsuit against
The deer,
us not killing enough deer.
yeah.
So I don't know. I understand the frustration, but they shouldn't think that the department isn't actively studying the bears and trying to come up with good methodologies for the proper management of the species and all. But we got a lot of factors at play, and we want to do it right. We don't want to make a misstep, and we don't want for a lawsuit to be involved that keeps us from ever having
Yeah.
a bear season as a management too.
Well, they were explained, very much by the wildlife, what their position was on it, and I mean, they, just like I said, they have to enforce the laws that were passed by the feds and everything to protect these animals, so. I know I think it was Barham that said that before he left from here, he'd have a bear season, but he got it delisted, but it never went into the bear season.
You and I are good friends, and I spent a lot of time in a Boyles Parish at them wildlife meetings and stuff, and
Yeah.
one thing I learned in a Boyles Parish, go prepared to do more listening than you do explaining.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. No, I just wanted to tell you, this came up, the meeting was called by the police jury and they had the meeting and the people were just upset about the number of bears and how much damage they're doing to their own property, So,
Chairman, I have a follow-up comment, and maybe it exists, but I haven't looked that part of our website, but maybe Mr. Myers, or Secretary Myers, we could put something on the website that our website, or maybe work with the Department of Agriculture, the best way for beekeepers to protect their investment from bears, like cages or fences or
but
whatever.
they have the fences. The wildlife does work with them. Because I've been involved with that when Marie Davis and Paul actually started the Black Bear. In fact, I even told her, which a lot of people call me, why? I was one of the first ones to move the first bear to Vols Parish. So. That's
You're
what
ground
the
zero.
people know why they call me, when they have something like that.
Yeah, Mr.
But
Chairman,
It's what I said, it's getting to be a point, I don't know when it'll ever be past anything, but the people are starting to get fed up with the bears. And you know what that means, especially on the Vols Parish. There's an old saying, the Vols Parish take care of their problems, so. So,
Randy,
yes, sir. I just would like to make a comment in regards to, we do have on our website information for the Bear Wise, which we just recently hired Johnny Berry into that position. Johnny's got a lot of a lot of experience working with black bears. He's probably our number one guy in the north part of the state. But we've also worked with the beekeepers, Mr. Coco. We have provided them with technical information. We've actually offered up to assist with putting up electric fences, things that you have to do to mitigate those damages. And we've been met with opposition to that, right? So we're willing to help, we're willing to provide that information, but it also is going to take the ones that are being impacted to go a little, maybe an extra step to learn how to live with bears. Bears are here, as Mr. McPherson alluded to, is, this is something that we're not going to solve overnight, but we're also going to continue to work with the people that have problems and issues so that they understand that there are some options. So.
Thank you.
this time of the year, especially just dry like it is, electric fence doesn't work as good. You've got to have moisture on the ground for it to shock, especially a bear. It's
All
dry,
right.
the electric fence doesn't work too good.
All right.
But anyway,
Well,
the people, the bee people there, they're working with the wildlife. The wildlife works with them, you know? It's just like the people themselves are getting fed up with it because there's so many bears, they're destroying their own personal crop, you know?
Yeah.
Their houses and
All right.
camps and everything.
All righty. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, and I'm sure Randy and them's gonna keep the informants going, to the beekeepers. Do we have anybody else wanting to speak to the commission? We'll close that and we'll ask for an adjournment. Okay, we adjourn. Thank y'all for all attending. Yeah.